Now, I guess I'm forgetting one important thing here, which is that when we build out a post, we need to know what forum it's getting posted to, obviously. And so we'll set that here as well. And so we can use our forum service to actually grab the forum ID from the new post model that we're creating in order to return the forum object here for our new post. So we'll save our forum is equal to, we'll invoke our forum service to get by ID, and we'll put the forum ID on this model. And so our new post model here has a forum ID on it. And so when we visit that page, we need to make sure that that forum ID is set, and then we can actually use it when we post the new post back up from our forum. So that said, let's go ahead and create our post create view. So I'm going to go ahead and add a new item here, and we're just going to call it create. Okay, and what I'm going to do is just go ahead and paste in a very simple view here. So at the top, as usual, we have our model, and we're setting it to this new post model, saying that this will be the model that we'll be passing to this view. And so very simply, we'll have a heading here where we say where we output the forum name, and then we can use tag helpers again here inside of our forum tag, as well as the other HTML elements that are incorporated in forms like labels and inputs. So we'll have a div using some Bootstrap of class forum group, and then a label and an input for the title, and another forum group here with a label and a text area for the post content. Then we'll have a button of type submit, and I just gave it an ID, and then some Bootstrap button class, and then this button submit post, which will be a custom CSS class that we'll need to write when we address styling. So I'm going to go ahead and just clean this up a little bit. Okay, and then this is the sort of interesting part here. We can have a hidden input to make sure that our forum actually passes up the forum ID on this new post model when it makes the HTTP post request. So if we head back into the post controller here, the reason that we need that is because we're going to pass this model around, for instance, to our build post private method here, and then we're going to, from this model, grab the forum ID and pass that to our forum service for it to actually return the instance of the particular forum that we need to assign to this new post. Okay, so that's good. So we get this new post entity model back, and then we use our post service to add it to our database. Once that's done, at some point we'll implement this user rating management system to do something like bump the user rating, and then we'll return a redirect action back to the new post index that we'll get corresponding to this post's ID. So let's go ahead and take this for a spin and see if we can get it working. So what I'm going to do is actually set a breakpoint here on the HTTP post add post method, and we'll go ahead and start IIS. All right. Very shortly we'll be fixing the home view too, so that we get something where we can just directly click into our forums. But for now, we'll visit our forum index, and let's visit the Python forum, and then let's create a button here on the forum page that we can click to create a new post. So I think that would be the most useful way to do it, rather than just type in the address in the URL here. This is actually on the topic.cshtml view, and we'll just put it near the top. When we do user authentication, we'll make sure that the post option is only available to authenticated users. We'll just call this a heading button. And then I'm going to make a link and just style it as a button here. So we'll use an anchor tag with the ASP controller tag helper, post, ASP action of create, and the ASP route ID. Again, this needs to be our forum ID, so we have that on model.forum.id. And then to style it like a button, we just add some Bootstrap classes to it. So we'll say class is equal to button, and we'll also make our own custom styling at some point with button new post. And I'll go ahead and make sure that this gets correctly evaluated. We don't need quotes there. But I can just say create post and then /a. Okay, and it is warning me about the fact that the end tag is missing a closing bracket. So let's take a look back here at the front. Okay, actually that's, I think, looking all right. So we have the span. We've got our tag helpers here. Okay, so we should have our create post button now if we go back to the page and refresh. Okay, and yeah, we'll need to style this more as a button when we address the CSS, but for now let's go ahead and click it and see if it's working. Okay, so we get taken to a new post page for the Python forum, but you can see we have a complete mess here inside of the content, which means we're probably missing a closing tag or something somewhere, so let's go ahead and fix that. So this will be in our create view. So we'll go to create.cshtml. Yeah, and I think that text area, at least in this case, is not self-closing. So let's go ahead and create a closing tag for it here, and we'll come back to the page and refresh. And yeah, that looks a little bit better. So now we have the ability to hopefully submit a new post. So let's give that a shot. We're gonna go ahead and just make the title post from form. And content from form, from Python post form, and we'll go ahead and click submit post. Okay, so we hit our HTTP post method, and we can take a look at the model that's getting passed. So we didn't pass everything up in our view model, but we did pass the forum ID along with the content and the title. So the forum ID coming from that hidden input field, and the content and title correctly coming from the inputs. So let's go ahead and work through this. We'll hit F10, and it looks like we grab the user ID, and now we throw a null reference exception here, it looks like on the user ID. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and minimize this, and let's work out what's happening here. So what may be happening here is that we need to make sure that our user manager is actually wired up correctly. So let's go up to the top here. So we do have a private static user manager field that we're setting, and so that looks correct. But if we scroll back down, I wonder if we had an issue with our session or something. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and stop. We'll keep our breakpoint here, and we'll go ahead and fire the server back up and try to debug it a little bit more slowly this time. So I'm going to go ahead and log in. Okay, and we're getting an application user error here too on our sign-in manager. So once again, I think this is more of the namespace issues that we need to clean up since the very beginning of the project when we moved the application user entity model out of the web project. So we're going to actually look in the views here, in this case under account, and we'll go to login.cshtml, and yeah, it's not going to be able to find this application user. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the server again, and we'll remove unnecessary usings here with control period. And what I'll do is just go ahead and say at using data.models, and that should bring in our application user and resolve that here. And we'll go ahead and remove some of these unnecessary usings. I'll save that file, and then I'm going to go ahead and copy this using and make sure that it's used across all of our account views here. So we don't need it in some of them, but we did need it in login. And it looks like, yeah, we just need it in the login view. So a bit of a sidetrack there, but it is something that needed to be fixed. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and close a bunch of these that I had just opened, and we'll come back to our post controller where we have our breakpoint set, and then I'll go ahead and fire up the server again. Okay, so let's try to log in. All right, and we can go ahead and select login. And so the login form is working correctly. Now we just need to head over to /forum index. We'll go to our Python forum, and we'll create a new post. And we'll say Python post from form, And here we'll just say some post content. And we'll try to submit the post. And this time we'll walk through a little bit more slowly. And so we'll hit F10. And so our user ID is null. We have a user manager. We're going to get the user ID, and we have a claims identity here. And we can see that here, which corresponds to my current login. We'll hit F10. And yeah, we have a user ID now. So this should work. I have a feeling that what happened earlier was that perhaps our session timed out. So I'm going to hit F5. And now we're getting a not implemented exception in our post service. So we haven't actually apparently implemented our add method in our post service. So that should be an easy fix, and that's something that does make sense. So we're going to head over into our post service now and implement it. So I'm going to minimize some of these things and then go directly to our post service. Look for this add task, and we'll go ahead and fill this out. This is a pretty easy one. We'll go ahead and stop the server, and what I'll do is just invoke our DB context here and very simply call the add method, pass it the post, and then all we need to do is await our save changes async, and we'll make the task asynchronous, explicitly asynchronous as well here. So okay, so now we have the ability to add this post when we invoke the add method here. And so we'll go ahead and fire the server back up, and we'll try to add the post now that our post service has a method that works, or should work. I should also note that a little bit later in this series, we're going to be looking at testing, and we'll test our services actually in a pretty interesting way using an in-memory database that's available in .NET Core 2.0. So yeah, we'll look at that a little bit later as well. But for now, we're just going to go forth and try to implement some of these basic features. So we'll come into Python here, we'll create a post again, and we'll say new Python post from form, and we'll say form content, and we'll go ahead and submit. Okay, so we hit our breakpoint. I'm going to Control-Shift F9 to remove all breakpoints, and hit F5 again. Okay, so now we get a null reference exception here, again on our user object. So it's interesting, this was actually what's failing before, so I suspect that it is more than just a session timeout, but that we may have a little bit more to debug here. So let's actually take a look at the code a little bit more closely. So I'm going to go ahead and close this. So I suspect what's happening here is that this user manager is trying to find this user ID asynchronously, and in a sense it's going to unwrap eventually the value of this application user when it's complete. But our code may be working so quickly through this add post method that by the time I'm attempting to implement this user or use its value, it may not be available yet. And so what I'm going to try here is, rather than call await, is to actually block on it by removing await and then calling result on the find by ID async method. And so what this is going to do is it's actually going to block until this user object is available. And so since it should be available, it should not be null when we find the user by this user ID. Let's go ahead and give this a shot. So I'm going to fire up IIS again, and hopefully this gets our post working. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and log in again, and we'll head over to our forum once again, so forum/index, and into Python, and again we'll try to create a post. Say post from forum, and we'll say new Python post, and we'll go ahead and submit. And so now in this case, we're actually getting a sequence contains no. And so you can see we're calling this get by ID, which is 0. And so what's happening here probably, and we're going to just go ahead and continue and let the error finish out. And what I suspect is happening here is another instance of where we're expecting this asynchronous value of the post ID to get returned before it's actually been saved and available from our database. So again, we'll come back to our post controller, And so once again here we're awaiting post service.add post. And what I'm going to do here is just remove the await. And what I'm going to do here is actually just call .wait on this task. And so what this is going to do is it should block the current thread. So we'll say block the current thread until the task is complete. This is by no means ideal. In general, I would suppose it's a very special case, but only since we're essentially trying to get the post ID back immediately after posting it in order to perform this redirect action. I suppose we might justify using waiting on this asynchronous task to complete here. Okay, and actually I just noticed one more thing here. We're going to the index action on our post controller here, and what I'm just going to do is actually wrap this in a new object. I think that is what we want to do. We'll say post, the ID is equal to the post ID here, and that way the mapping should work correctly. So let's give this a shot. I'm going to go ahead and set a breakpoint here on our task, and we'll fire up IIS and go ahead and give this another shot. And so we'll go ahead and log in and head over to the forum index. We'll select Python and create a post, and we'll say Python post from forum and write some content, and we'll go ahead and hit submit post. So now we hit our breakpoint, passing what we need up in the model. So I'll hit F5, and yeah, so now we get redirected to our actual post. We can see our content and the fact that we're the author and the date as well. So far that's looking pretty good. We definitely need to create some styling and provide the ability for users to post replies to the forum as well. But the next thing I'd like to tackle is sort of working on the layout a little bit, and at least getting our homepage up and running so that we can actually navigate through the application a little bit more naturally now. So let's take a look at how we can get that started.